And a love coach.
And a love coach.
Ooh, the love witch.
Yeah. Oh, a love witch.
The love witch.
Yes.
Scary. That should be your thing.
So we're just going to kind of start this one off hot, guys. I just know on the way in, Jeremy, I've been fortunate. I've known Tony for a while, man. He actually wrote a script, still to this day. Nothing ever happened with it, but it's the most impressive script that I've been a part of. He created like a whole languge, and it was
that one,
that was so cool. It was like
that's gonna get revisited for sure.
It was so dope, man. He created like this whole language, and then he's just constantly teaching me stuff about magic and how to acknowledge and then awaken it within. And Jeremy, I know his mind was just blowing up on the car on the way here. So Jeremy, start off.
I feel like a magic virgin. I've just never. No one I know does magic.
Well, I love Magic Virgin because I don't know. I like.
Did Tony get closer to the mic?
Oh, sorry. I like. Oh, whoa.
Yeah, see,
that's really loud. Magic Virgin, just because like when people, like the typical virgin sacrifice, and they're like, oh well, I'm not a virgin, you can't use me. I'm like, actually, virgin sacrifice means virgin blood, which means blood that has not been drawn for magical purposes.
Boom.
So technically, many people count for this. I just
like almost everyone.
Pretty much a lot of people, I would say, virgin sacrifice count for that. But it's just me. Not that we do that.
But I have to know, what is magic?
I would say, and I could be misquoting it, but I believe Gerald Gardner said it. Who's the founder of my tradition. I'm Gardnerian, and he said magic is the art of getting results. And that's honestly the best way that I could really put it to you. I mean, you could ask any witch, honestly, like, what is it that makes magic work? Like, we couldn't tell you. We just know it does. For some reason, it's the correlation, either if not using, like they say, as above, so below. That's why we use materials or things that represent our goal. And you use your imagination constructively in that sense, to visualize that goal. And by sheer willpower combined with the materials at hand, you're able to attain things. I can't tell you why it works. I really can't. But I just kind of feel like...
I've done it with him a few times. The shit is real.
No, it is. Like, that's the thing.
What do you mean by real?
I mean, as real as me and you sitting here. I mean, it's not, no one's levitating, because magic always coincides with nature.
Right.
There's nothing
Okay.
there's nothing that will happen that will go against the laws of nature.
So it's not supernatural, it's natural.
Right. I mean, people call magic supernatural, but honestly, it's the most natural thing in the world. Kind of when we were in the woods, what we were doing, if you were a conservative Christian, you'd be like, this is witchcraft. But I mean, not really to me. This was just a very normal thing.
But that's because it's different for them, right? A conservative Christian calls power of prayer when they get on their knees and ask a deity for a blessing in a ritualistic way.
Mm-hmm.
Well, people are dressed as druids and light incense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
which is
yeah,
magic.
that's pretty weird in of itself.
I mean, the
Drinking
Bible's
the
filled
blood,
with
eating the
witchcraft,
bread.
absolutely. I mean, right, eating the body and drinking of the blood. I mean, Christ's birthday coincides with the winter solstice. These are not coincidences that happen.
Which they chose after the Council of Nicaea.
Right. It was very deliberate.
It was for pagans? Is that why?
Yeah. It made a conversion for the pagans easier, and, Rome needed to unify the empire under religion.
It was a political move.
A total political move.
And then Easter became spring, even though Easter should have been the fall, because Jesus died in the fall. There was no figs on the fig tree.
Mm-hmm.
So they made it spring because it was easier for the pagans' rebirth. That's why there's bunnies.
Mm-hmm.
It coincides, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even Jesus being born in the winter just doesn't even make any sense, because they were talking about how outside the shepherds were watching the flock graze, and you don't do that in the middle of the winter.
Right.
So there's holes in the narrative already. But I mean, Jesus was the greatest witch of all time, in my opinion. And
100%.
That's why I tell people, what's the difference between flying on a broomstick and turning water to wine? There really isn't one. It's the same thing. So Jesus plus his own apostles, that makes 13. Full coven.
Oh, wow.
If you want to look at it that way, 100%. So,
I mean, I've always looked at the Bible as essentially a guidebook or a recipe book on how to do your own magic.
It is.
It is.
It is. It very much is. I mean, that's why the Psalms throughout hoodoo, voodoo, espiritismo, you use the Psalms as a spell book. And for the longest time, the ancestors have acknowledged that. Like, they're like, this is a spell book. And I think that is one of the things that makes magic so powerful in its ability to adapt. So even when Christianity was taking over everything and they were trying to stamp out paganism and root all of this out, all they did was start to now mix biblical figures with their own folklore and magic. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's why, again, in hoodoo, voodoo, they'll use saints. Even though a lot of times the saints represent a lua or another spirit, but a lot of times they directly work with the saints, because the saints are the spirits of dead people. So they petition these saints and get the saints to work for them, and I mean, they get results. And that's why I say magic is the art of getting results. If what you're doing is not working, why are you doing it?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's something wrong. But if I, let's say I do a work, we'll call it work. I do a work, and what I want happens, and then I do it again, and then what I want happens again, and so on and so forth. Like, how many times can you do that before you not think, okay, this is obviously working? Like,
Yeah.
before
you're crazy for ignoring
right,
yourself.
exactly. Like, there's something to this.
Which again, if a Christian's comfortable praying and hoping for results, they should be comfortable doing magic.
They should be comfortable doing magic, but I feel like when Christians pray, they don't actually expect the results. And I feel like that's why it doesn't work.
Well, I grew up Catholic, and you would kneel, the priest would be up on the altar, holding up,
the Eucharist.
The Eucharist, yeah, and then there would be chimes, and they would light incense, and everyone would be saying a prayer together. And I always thought that was so weird, because all of these
Because magic is weird.
middle-aged white people who are dressed like all this are just
Doing a
acting
ritual.
like nothing's going on. And I'm like, what the fuck is this?
Wow.
You know what I mean?
No, 100%.
So
yeah.
when you break it down like that, it is kind of already magic.
Well, I mean, you who grew up Catholic, I mean, just look up Catholic folk magic.
Okay.
Your head will explode.
Well, think about exorcisms too.
Yeah.
Magical as
Like
fuck.
they're pulling out demon. Like people believe in that, but then if you take them to the woods and do a chant, they're like, "What the fuck?"
Oh,
are you
that's
doing?
evil. It's just like,
You're like, what are you talking about?
so the setting is evil? I don't understand. Like, it's
Yeah.
just like, what's the difference between doing it in a church and doing it in the middle of the woods? Like, it's,
Yeah.
I feel like it's just perceptions of that,
It's
And
the media's way of painting it as well, with blood sacrifice, bloodletting. Like, what kind of magic is that?
blood sacrifice.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so I am also an aborisha in Santeria. I haven't.
Okay.
So basically, what that means is you could look at it as like a dedication to the first steps into becoming fully initiated into the religion. But in Santeria, animal sacrifice is a part of the religion, as it has been since
Since the Bible.
even before that.
The Lamb of God.
Yeah, they even do animal sacrifices in the Bible. for
That's what I'm saying, is
example.
they do sacrifices.
Well, the word sacrifice means to make holy. So in that idea, it's not, let's just kill a goat. It's a because we have such an understanding that life is life and it's very precious, it's very sacred. So the act of releasing life, so there's a lot of explanations for it. So they'll say, for example, the Orisha feast on life, which is the blood. We feast on death. That's why we eat the body afterwards. So the act of letting that blood is so powerful. It's such a powerful thing that is what allows this energy that we'd call Orisha or Lua, whatever, to come down.
Or the Holy Spirit.
Or let's say the Holy Spirit. It allows the Spirit to come down.
It's the same thing.
Life begets life, right?
Yeah.
So it's that same. It's like that kind of a cycle. So I mean, I don't believe in like torturing and killing animals or anything like that. But I mean, yes, there is a place for, I guess, blood sacrifice if you want to look at it like that. But it's done with the utmost reverence and respect. And my padrino actually told me that in some beliefs, they believe that the animal being sacrificed goes straight to Olodumare, or to the source, and bears witness to the ritual that it gave its life to.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's very
similar to
interesting.
like when Native Americans go hunting, something similar to that.
We were talking about that in the car. Yeah.
Yeah.
How when you kill something in the Native American culture, you have to use every single part of that animal.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So
you have
there's
to
a
eat
little-
all the organs.
Everything. Use
Yeah.
the antler, whatever you can, so nothing goes to waste. Because it's
Exactly.
about understanding
The hide. Yeah, from the cold.
Right.
Yeah,
life
it's
is
not
precious.
wasteful.
It's not wasteful. It's not. We don't. It's not killing for sport.
No,
And
it's
that's
killing for utility.
for need.
Yeah.
And you can't avoid that at times.
No.
And it's the same thing sometimes with blood sacrifice. Not all the time the Orisha call for blood. That's not what it is. 9 times out of 10, it could be they love fruits and all these other kinds of ebo, which you call, offering. Ebo can be given in a lot of different kinds of ways. But when blood is called for, it's usually because of something really significant. You know what I mean? Like, my mom's, has, I'm not gonna, whatever, never wish that on my mom. Something happened to my mother and I need, the Orisha will say, well, this is very huge, so you need blood for this. And that's just what it, I don't know what I can put over it, but that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
And in Tony's book, he has a line. It's not necessarily real for it, but I love it. It's your magicians are chosen, ours are born, or something like that. How does that go? So somebody like Danielle that it just naturally comes to was like born, right?
Yeah, I
Into
mean,
it.
you'll get like a lot of like on the internet, people are like, "Oh, I'm a hereditary witch," and like it's just like, what the fuck does that mean? Like it's just like, but I mean, yes, I mean, I do believe that there are people that are just innately born with that thing. I mean, but it's no more special than someone who's, let's say, naturally good at playing the violin or being a basketball player. It's not to say that not everybody can learn magic. Sure, you can, but not everyone is, all-star player, so to speak. Not everyone is.
Not everybody's LeBron James.
Not everyone's LeBron, and that's okay.
Right.
And sometimes people feel like you're elitist for saying that. It's like, but it's not. I'm saying everyone can learn it. I'm just saying that there are people who are naturals. That's okay, But everyone wants to say, Dika, that they're a natural. But,
Jeremy, you'd probably be good at it because you get signs. Like, I'm with you and you get signs. It's usually people, you have to be open to it. And the other thing Tony always says, too, like anybody that wants to learn it, is you have to be in touch with, like, your ancestors and your roots, right? So essentially the theme of this weekend since we've been visiting is we've been talking about kind of like, I don't know, I don't want to say evil, but the disconnected nature since the Industrial Revolution. I don't want to create a boogeyman or a race or anything, but just the Industrial Revolution has disconnected people from their roots. And what happens is we're completely dependent on these big fucking farms and these companies, and their job is to make money. And we get mad that they put these, I get mad personally, they put these hormones and these other shits in our food, and they're altering people's brain balances and chemical imbalances in their bodies and all this other crazy shit. And what's happened is we've gotten away from the actual land and the roots, right? Like, white people in America think that their someone's just white instead of like Celtic or like no, like, you know what I mean? Like there's yo, white people were doing crazy magic too, like the runes I just found out about, and like all this other crazy shit. And those people were super in touch with the land and and all that. Like, I feel like
community.
America has its own culture, regardless of what color you are.
Yeah.
And the Industrial Revolution, that's a good point. I mean, it brought all this, all the microphones.
Yeah.
And everything. So it's kind of,
it has its use. It's got to be steered.
Exactly.
It's like you got to steer it down the fucking mountain, and we've gotten too far away, right? So I always go back to the Bible. The book of the Bible, and to recreate the Garden of Eden, you have to toil the earth. We've gotten away from the earth. If human beings have a special role, we're the earth's caretakers. If not even caretakers, regulators, right? We more or less, good or bad, I'm not saying it's either, but we basically decide what animals live and die, what crops are grown. It's kind of been our role.
We're the top of the mountain for evolutionary biology.
And we've gotten away from it, and we have these little dweebs, not that they're bad guys, that are like running the world. There's the warrior poets are supposed to be like the chieftains, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's where we've gotten away from.
Well, remember, we talked about, I think it was yesterday, we were talking about how the Bible says that God gave man dominion over the earth. And I was saying you can look at dominion two ways. It's one is how I like to see it is God gave man consciousness. We're the only things consciously aware of the world and the planet that we're living in. Therefore, the second half of dominion is responsibility. Because we're conscious, we have the responsibility to take care of the world that we're being put in. Because, I mean, in very much ways, like you were saying, we decide who lives and who dies, what crops grow, what grow. You're being God. At this point, man has become God in his own environment, shaping the world around him as he sees it. That's the other thing of as above, so below. It's as I see the world, so it is, right? But people see the world a certain way, and they think that's what it is. But then you have people like us who kind of sit here and go, wait a minute, there's a greater picture to this. There's something more to this.
Right. And it's just looking at things objectively too. And it kind of goes back to what you said before, right? Like, the church oftentimes prays to saints. It's similar to Antonio. Whenever you want to learn magic, Danielle and I have been hearing essentially like Antonio says the first people you go to is the ancestors.
Always.
They're the closest.
Always.
Right? So the saints would be like the next, right? Like, God's like the farthest removed. That would be like being in a company and being in the bottom floor and going to see the CEO of a $1 billion company. Like, all right, buddy, go talk to your boss first. And then he like gets relayed up the chain,
which makes sense.
Yeah, like I was talking to Luke about Olodumare in the African mind, which is what we would call God, but it's everything itself. You cannot conceive Olodumare, right? And they also believe Olodumare is very old.
Which all religions say you can't conceive God.
Right, you can't conceive God, but yet God is helping you pass your math test. But that you can't go to Olodumare for that. You can't conceive that. So in the African mind or in these religions, you have emissaries of God, which are manifestations through nature that we can understand, that we call Orisha, Okay. So it's like, I was telling her, it's like, if you want to understand the deepness and the vastness and the creation of God, you see the sea, the ocean, we call that Yemaya, or the passion that makes life, that brings life, the pleasure, the good things in life, the Oshun. you know, and these are things that we could see and understand, and they act as what we would call God, but it's not the God, if that makes any sense. You know, so it's like, I feel like that makes sense to me. Like, yeah, God could not be conceived. Why the hell would God care about what the hell is going on Earth? You know, it makes sense that he has things acting here almost to regulate and monitor what's going on. And if you want to look at it in the Bible, or the book of, it's no longer in the Bible, but the book of Enoch talks about there were watchers, and that was their role
aliens.
as well. Yeah. So aliens were here to watch and what was going on and monitor and regulate, you know, and mankind worshiped them as gods. But that's not what they were, and they never claimed to be that.
Right.
So, we just...
Well, it'd be like dogs look at us like gods. We probably look at them like gods,
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. I mean, that's actually funny you use that example because, I mean, think about it. You, as a person, you could raise, or me, I have a dog. I could raise Percy's, and Percy's can give me puppies and puppies and puppies, and in my own lifetime, I'll be able to raise all of those dogs, and they'll never see me age, right? So it's almost like from the dog's perspective, I'm immortal, you know, like I live forever. Like I have raised generations of these dogs. But, you know, and it could be on the flip the same thing with these beings. It's not that they don't die or they're that immortal. It's just they live longer than us for sure, you know. And who knows? It could be the same.
Well, age is connected with time anyway.
And age is connected with time anyway.
So
in the Bible, people were living for 900 years, so that would tie into that too.
Right.
You know.
And again, if there are these beings, then presumably there's good and bad.
Like there is in everything.
Like in everything.
In everything. There's always the balance to those things. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I think she asked me yesterday, like if I believed in the devil. Or like what was the devil or something like that.
And it's like who defines the devil, right? Like
I don't believe in Satan. Yeah. Like I don't. I expect most witches do not believe in the devil, and that's why when people are like, "Oh, you get your," it's just like that just doesn't make any sense. For the devil is a Christian concept. That's a Christian invention, you know. And even in the earliest version,
but he's not even really mentioned.
That's what I'm saying. It's just he's not a directly.
He's a church created concept.
He's a church Christian
huge difference between my issue, and we talk about it all the time.
Yeah,
Christ is cool. The church sucks.
Yeah, church is garbage. That's absolute garbage. But then they create things like the devil, something for you to be afraid of. But it's like, I don't believe in that. It's like I was telling her, I think that if, let's say you're doing a ritual, if we're looking at it in a magical sense, and you want to conjure evil and invoke evil spirits, and you need to use the word Satan to do that, to help you understand what you're trying to connect with, then fine. And I think it will appear to you, but I don't think that those energies or whatever's going to manifest is the actual, like, devil. I think it's just evil energies that you're trying to align with. And again, if you need to call it Satan, Lucifer, whatever, in order for you to get that, then whatever. The words don't matter.
But we say to someone like Danielle, who's naturally like, so when we went to Sedona, she found like this Native American, he wasn't technically a shaman because he was still afraid of death. And he said shamans can't be afraid of death. So he said technically he wasn't. But he was like a guide, and Danielle was super like called to like her native roots, which I mean she kind of looks like she has it in her anyways.
Of course.
How would she go about? Obviously, I know you're gonna like start teaching her and training her. How would she go about kind of like?
Yeah, how to get from like realization to reliving, right? It feels like there's this inner wisdom I'm tapped into now.
You're very wise. I told you that at the tree. Very, very, very wise. Like I said, and Luke said in the beginning, I think everything goes back to the ancestors. Mm-hmm. You don't need to, I mean, it's great if you know the ones that have gone before you by name. That's always great to know. But I mean, it's as simple as collectively addressing them. If you do it in like the traditional Latin way, you know, like aperitivo and that kind of way, it would be you set up the fuente, which is the glass of water. You have the white candle, white flowers. And every day, you go in front of that and acknowledge them. You know, you talk to them as you would in life, like I was telling you the other day. And just that in itself, you know, and as you're giving the water is a portal to the dead. It helps them. You have to change the water to make sure it's clear, because that's clarity of the spirits. That's going to give them more clarity to communicate. You give them fire to guide them there and to warm them. You know, fire is also another conduit. Mm-hmm. So the more you do that, I promise you do that for a month, the way that the ancestors will manifest themselves is going to be absolutely insane, you know, and it just speaks for itself.
Well, in witnessing you, I was fearless because I saw that it's pure intention, right?
It is.
From the moment of putting the candle and the flowers, it's you're honoring something that's forgotten.
Right.
There's something pure about that.
It is.
And then to just seek wisdom and community, even when you're not physically with other people, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not like you're alone anymore. Mm-hmm. I hate the victim mindset people carry with them and this fear of aloneness, but we don't have to be alone even when we're physically alone.
Right.
which that realization, I think that's coming towards self-love, because you can be self-fulfilled in your own space.
Absolutely.
But also tapping into something beyond us, right?
Absolutely.
So
they'll be like the ancestors with you and stuff like that. And for anybody that's listening, it's not clear yet. I just want to double down on it. Antonio is one of, if not the most knowledgeable person about the Bible I've ever met. So him and I got tight because we would him and I got tight because we used to, like, when he wrote the script, I made a couple Bible references. He made a couple Bible references. It was like, oh, you don't just listen to what man's interpretation is. You read yourself. Cool. And one of my favorite parts is Matthew chapter 10. If anybody hasn't read that, go read it and tell me it's not a fucking magic book. Jesus teaches the disciples to do everything he does. He says, you guys can do what I do.
And greater than I.
The whole point is it's within certain people, and you can teach it and enact it. And the church is the one saying not to do it, not Jesus.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. Like, Christ is cool. It's the people in the power that are telling you shouldn't use your powers. Like the Industrial Revolution, depend on us, right? They're moving everybody to the cities and off of the land so that they can buy the land and use the land that they're getting you off of and telling you to get off. No, there's no reason for you to have that land. Cool, come to the city. And then they buy it.
Right.
Hey, no, there's no reason for you to look into your own magic. And then they sell it to you with you getting on the knees in their chapel doing their prayers instead of your own. It's an like, right, I always say, like, the devil's a liar, but that I always mean, like, the person who's controlling the narrative is twisting it for their own favor, and maybe, hopefully, they're fucking listen. Like, like, trust in people. Like, watch Ride the Last Dragon, right? Like, you just gotta trust. And, like, people are gonna fuck up, but it'll work itself out.
It will work itself. I mean, and piggybacking off of that, Jesus says, you will do greater works than I. He says, you'll be able to look at that mountain and say, get up and toss yourself into the ocean if you have the faith of a mustard seed. And we've talked about that before. And the faith of the mustard seed is knowing that it will work. And that's what divides, to me, prayer and spell work. Prayer is hoping and asking and hoping. Spell work is speaking, knowing that this is going to happen because I say so.
And you know why prayer is like that? Because it's not the person's own. It's told to them by somebody else. It's not coming from their heart.
And if you think about it, if you're constantly being told that God is, away and kind of far, you're going to be like, please, I hope you're out there. Please, I hope you're doing, I hope if you're hearing me. It's just like, nothing's going to happen that way. That's not what Jesus was saying.
Think of how we would react if somebody's like that. Like, yo, man, get your shit together.
And who are you?
Yeah. So, like, to go back to the mustard seed, because we recently were talking about, we want to, and I talk about it all the time with you, and me and Danielle have been talking about it recently. We essentially want to recreate our own Garden of Eden, right? And by that I mean I literally want to buy like 40 acres and plant, and in particular the mushroom and things of that nature. But the Masons, which Antonio and I are both a part of, what they say, at least Manly P. Hall says, is the Bible is there's 7 interpretations. Right, there's a literal and whatever. So, like, let's say in a literal sense, you have to toil the ground to get back to the Garden of Eden. You have to farm. Now, the mustard seed is constantly referenced to the way to heaven. So if you toil the ground for your mind in a metaphor, you're getting your mind ready for the heaven, right? So that's like another, when you just said that the mustard seed, I was like, oh yeah, right. That's another part. Right? You have to toil the ground. You have to constantly put the work in. You have to get that ready, which would be the metaphor. That just kind of was connecting the dots on that. But, like, yeah, we had an absolutely wild night in Stone Mountain last night.
To say the very least. Yeah.
With absolute synchronicities and divine signs and confirmations for the entire time of it. And my passed away buddy Heck essentially fucking spoke to us for, like,
I mean, essentially he did.
Not
like that was,
for anybody that's listening,
full
like
on
120%.
Yeah, like full on.
I don't want to lose. Imagine go through like the whole trip of it, and I mean that in multiple senses, right? Turn the key in multiple ways. Mushrooms, obviously, guys. Listen to the show, fucking I don't hide it. Yeah. But it was absolutely synchronized and powerful, and hopefully we're gonna do him a solid.
100%.
But yeah, we're gonna create the Garden of Eden. It's listening. It felt like something's coming, within like the next 5 years, like,
It just better be prepared, not relying on the system. It's not working. It's been breaking in front of our eyes.
Absolutely.
So even if it's not broken yet, I at least want to be somewhere where
You're
I'm
seeing
like
the cracks. You're
Yeah.
like time
like
to
here, I'm in my safe ship, and I'm sorry you guys didn't build your house on the mountain. Instead, you built it on sands. I do not want to be on the sands.
I love the fact that you said I'm in my ship, because Jesus compared the last days to the days of Noah. You know, and he said, as it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. And I think that that's very relevant, because I mean, when you look at what was happening in Noah's day, you know, it was pretty much a free-for-all corruption. You know, humans were doing whatever, and then scripture goes on to say, and they were marrying and being given in marriage, and then sudden destruction fell on them. And I feel like if you look at just the way this country, or just everything is just kind of going, it's kind of like that. Everyone's just kind of living in their own thing, and it would make sense that out of the blue, everything just kind of falls on you. And it seems like it hits you from nowhere, except to the ones who have been paying attention, and we're like, I see, to the Noahs, basically, who were like, I see this impending doom coming on the way. It's time to build this boat, so to speak, you know. And
Well, Noah was told how many years before, and he just kept building the boat, and like all his
everyone
neighbors
thought he was crazy.
Thought he was crazy, and he was like, I don't know, man, I got a sign. I follow my signs.
Yeah, God is telling me.
And when they say like Jesus, you know, with miracles, to kind of keep tying this back in, the word miracle in Hebrew, which again, the word miracle that we use now came after Christ's life. So the word miracle for Jesus' time was reading of the omens.
Of the omens or the signs.
So if you look at the word miracle in Hebrew, it's reading of the omens, signs of victory. It's understanding the signs. It's seeing the sign but taking action. So I know that's never read the book, The Celestine Prophecy.
You gave me that book a couple years back.
It doesn't talk about magic at all, but it's absolutely, it can help you understand your synchronicities. And the whole concept of it is honor them, right? If you're thinking of your mom, and your mom's favorite song all of a sudden pops on the radio, give her a call.
Yeah.
There's probably a reason. And she's like, oh my God, I was just thinking of you, da 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 da. And don't just think of that as like, wow, that's crazy. No, it's crazy to ignore it.
Yeah.
It's crazy to ignore it, because the more you follow it, the more you find it. And in math and science, if you don't, like if you ignore it, like aren't you fucking crazy?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? And we're so dependent on these people we don't know, and assuming that they have the best intentions with our foods and our lands, and like it's fucking crazy to me at this point. And I'm not getting out of the modern world, but I do want to create a little like community.
I'm here for the commune.
Sounds awesome.
Right? Yeah. I'm glad we're all on board with the commune.
So that's kind of where we're at with that. And then I don't think you never ended up reading Tony's book, did you? That was done. So anybody that hasn't, I'm gonna kind of like tie this into that. And Tony, I'm trying to get Antonio to actually move up here to Georgia. He's based in Miami. Tony Sosa.
You like it?
Yeah.
I love Georgia.
Really?
Yeah, I have my heart set. I was already talking to my boyfriend.
Dude, there's a lot of land too.
I know, bro.
Places.
And the houses, like it's. I loved it. Bro.
North Georgia mountains.
And his first book is actually based in Georgia.
In Georgia.
What?
Yeah,
So-
I did. The first book I wrote in a made-up town, Summerland, in Georgia.
That's cool.
Yeah. Thank you, bro. That's I don't know why I chose Georgia. Just.
I thought you were saying that this was naturally like an area that had a ton of like magic. Is
Yeah.
it? It's
Well,
like
there's
the
a lot of
forestry.
Native American, like a lot of old like native tribes are from here. If you go around the mountains, and there's little places named after them, like even the white people after them kept the names. So you can just, it's deep seated somehow.
No, yeah, there's a lot of spiritual. And when I got here, 'cause, I mean, I've driven through Georgia and I stayed a night once, but I mean, you don't really see anything.
Yeah.
But these couple of days I've been here, I mean, there's a real energy, like magic, if you want to call it, in Georgia. I really like it. It's very powerful.
But yeah. We've had a very powerful trip so far. I feel like Danielle has awoken her inner shaman, her inner goddess,
And her bruja, she's
bruja.
actualized. Listen, I told you what you did that night. Not a lot of people can.
What'd you do?
Genuinely.
Well, in summary, I went from a span of, magic, it's not for me because it's not given to me, towards getting the intuition that I should listen to my inner knowing rather than my thoughts, because they kept leading me here. I literally felt like I was in Plato's allegory of the cave with my head facing the shadows. And when I realized I want to go with Antonio and sing at a tree and dance and be wild, I awoken. It was like a coming out for me. This inner fire, my wild woman.
Absolutely.
So
That's awesome.
yeah, and that feeling is certainty. that's what he told me to follow, is certainty. But it's my certainty. It can't be told to me.
Right.
Wow.
But yeah, to answer you, she did what we would call a drawing down, which is basically when you, I mean, for lack of a better term, it's ritual possession. But it's when you allow the goddess to, the lunar energies, the feminine energies to inhabit the body, or you're able to bring them down and bring it into a body. And she was able to do that, genuinely. Because a lot of people fake it. I've seen a lot of people put on shows. There's no faking it when it actually comes down. And she did. It was very impressive. So I told her, I was just like, you bona fide, actualized.
Which again, the same, to tie it back into the church, not to cut you off, but people get the Holy Ghost.
Absolutely.
Same
Absolutely.
fucking
It's the same
thing.
thing. It's the same thing. It's the same concept. It's just, one gets demonized and the other one doesn't. You know what I mean? It's quite literally the same thing.
Why do you think and how do you think the current powers to be got the narrative?
Because they don't want competition, to be very frank. Imagine it's like your narrative is, we hold the power, we can talk to God, we communicate to God for you, we're the mediator. They're telling you that, when the reality is that you are God, you are source, and you have all the power to alter and to change your own reality. If they were telling you that, what the fuck do you need them for?
Right. So, well, I love the way the Hermetic Principles teaches that part. It would be like, right, so we're in the Matrix, or we're,
Right.
the hologram principle, mathematically is what it's called, which has been proven. We don't know what the fuck it means, we don't know if it's true, but mathematically it's there, and it is what it is. And I use the reference all the time to like Shakespeare, because everybody knows Shakespeare. So it'd be like, if you're in Hamilton, and you realize you're within the book, you're like, holy shit, I'm in a book. You still have your own character, and you're part Shakespeare. So it'd be where like, I think Tony's saying we're like the God, but he's saying like we have God within us, but it's not the same as saying we are Shakespeare.
Right.
Which is like, but that doesn't mean we don't have Shakespeare within us.
I mean, even Jesus says that, I believe he's quoting the Psalms, and he says, do you not know that ye are gods? Little g gods. But, he says you are gods. It's just like we're all fragments of that divine source.
Why do you think modern Christians get away from Jesus' teachings, right? So like again, like Matthew 10, he's teaching people, you guys can all do this. He's constantly saying, you're gods, right? Like, why is that demonized?
I think that, in all honesty, I feel that, how would I put it? It doesn't fit the narrative, essentially, because if you look at the teachings of Jesus,
it's a narrative that the church. I use the church, right? I'm not saying for any of us saying you guys go to church,
right?
There's a lot of good stuff to it.
No, there
can be. It depends, right? You get what you give. So like the people that do it the right way. There's people that do it the right way.
There's good people in the church.
Yeah. And there's people that do it the right way.
Most of it is not, but there are some good gems in there. But what did you ask me? And I completely.
It was, why do you think?
That they don't follow Jesus,
like the actual Gospels. Because it seems like it's Paul's book in the Old Testament. Ironically, the one that's listened to the least is the Gospels, which is the only part that's actually Jesus' teachings.
Churches are built off of all of the apostolic letters of Paul. That's the thing. And when you look at what they're talking about, you'll see why. And it's to answer your question, Paul spent all of his time criticizing and judging the secular world, which would be, our world, the non-religious world, if you want to look at it like that, casting judgment on those type of people. Jesus was criticizing religious authorities and calling out hypocrisy in the church. What would be the church?
Yeah, Jesus was talking shit to the church the whole time.
To the church leaders. So when you think about it, why would they want to teach what Jesus was saying, where you're not going to look at us? Instead, we're going to use Paul's teachings, which fits who we are more, is to judge the world around us for not being as holy and pious as the rest of us. Because that's what Paul was doing.
Right, because Jesus says, give to Caesar what's Caesar's. Basically, let the secular world do what the secular world does.
Let the secular world do what the secular world does.
If you want to be religious, find your fucking magic.
But then you have Paul writing, like, don't be like the world. And, like, it's just like, they're terrible people. Don't have sex with women. Like, it's just, it's ridiculous. Like,
so Tony was saying that he thinks Paul was gay, which makes sense.
Gay.
Really?
Paul's gay. Like, I don't care what he says.
A repressed man.
He was very oppressed. Like, it's just if you read the letters of Paul, like, first of all, he has this really distinct disdain for women, even to the point where he forbids his followers from having sex with women, even if they're straight, mind you. Like, he's like, do not have sex with them and don't even touch them.
Which is why the church is shit.
Which is why the church is shit.
Yeah.
Like the Mother Mary was like iconic.
Yeah.
Literally the whole thing.
Mary Magdalene.
Mary is not meant. I love that you brought Mary up. Mary is not mentioned more than 5 times in the entire New Testament. But somehow, and you grew up Catholic, she becomes the crowning jewel of the whole Catholic.
To the right of the altar is Mary and her. Like they have a statue. It's like baby Jesus and Mother Mary.
And Mary, there's something about Mary, bro. No, it's just, if you really look at Mary, and this is what I said, Mary is Astarte. Mary is the modern image of Astarte, who is an old goddess, and she has all of the same depictions. She's depicted with the moon underneath her feet. Mm-hmm. She's often wearing a crown of stars. She's described as the queen of heaven. She still has these titles. And when you look at that's Astarte. This is an old goddess. And so it makes sense now that the Catholics who were trying to take pagan ideas and right? So it's just
that's why bishops wear mitras. Is because the pagan mitra.
She was the virgin, which, to your point earlier, I was thinking about that, doesn't refer to sex particularly.
No.
It could just mean virgin blood.
It could be virgin blood.
Or pure, clarity, purity.
Well, until Christianity came around is when virginity started to mean not sex. Okay. Because before that, a virgin woman was simply a woman with no husband. Okay. So you have virgin goddesses like Diana, for example, who's described as a virgin. That doesn't mean she wasn't fucking. That just means she didn't have no man. So when you look at the story of Jesus and it says it was a virgin birth, Jews, when they in the Jewish mind, like the virgin pregnancy, that's a pagan idea. They didn't believe in things like that. A virgin was just a young woman. Mary was about between 12 and 15 years old. Right. So it's just like it would make sense that she, wasn't married. So she's just a young woman. So when you look at it that way, it makes more sense that Joseph very well could have been his mortal father. Why wouldn't he be? I mean, we also know that Jesus had brothers and sisters afterwards. So to continue to call her the Virgin Mary at that point, if you're going by purity standards, wouldn't make any sense. Right. You feel me? So, but yeah. I love Mary, though. I will say that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love Mary, and I love working with Mary. And I feel like you, Catholic, and working with spirits, little key, use Mary to conjure spirits. It sounds super crazy, powerful. But it is one of my favorite things to do. And it's because of the Hail Mary prayer where it says, now and at the hour of our death. Yeah. That means Mary's present when you die, which means souls, spirits are going to see her and they're going to gravitate towards her because what they want is to move on. Mary represents that transitional energy. So by invoking Mary and focusing on bringing in the spirits, you're gonna see that they just kind of start to like. We did that one time. It's called death walking, and death walking is when you guide spirits to the other side. And me and my boyfriend were doing that, Sam, and we were using Mary, and that was one of the most profound like experiences. Like I literally felt in that moment like I had become her. And I was like sobbing, like ugly crying, like Sarah Paulson, American Horror Story, ugly crying. And I just felt like the souls like passing through me and like I like individually and like it was just really crazy. And then that's when I understood the point of Mary. I was like, oh, she's a psychopomp. A psychopomp is a spirit designated to guide the dead. Wow. And I was like, oh, that's what she is. That makes so much sense.
Well, that's kind of what Jesus did too, right? When he went back up to heaven.
Mm-hmm. Jesus guided the living, which is why he was the way. And then Mary guides the dead.
Mary guides the dead.
But she brought light in as well, right? Because she birthed light.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very much what she is to the dead, I've noticed, is she represents that light, that hope of moving forward, especially to souls that's right, praying for the dead is a really powerful way, especially to not just working with ancestors, but with spirits too. You pray for the dead and you help them transition and pass. Like it really enriches your experience overall. And I mean, it's heavy, but it's beautiful, honestly. A lot of people are really scared of doing things like that, but it's honestly really beautiful.
Yeah, I would be scared.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, like, the protection element of that, because now they're going to, like, you're the channel, and then a bunch of them start coming for that, right?
I mean, you don't need protection. Mm-hmm. You are in that moment, and that's the thing with these beings. You become them. So in that moment, I was Mary. Like I was her, and I was allowing them to pass through me. So like there was no fears. I wasn't afraid of anything. Mm-hmm. Like I literally felt like I was a beacon of light. Like I could feel it. Like it was crazy, and I was crying because one, I felt like I was feeling like the individual emotions of the spirits passing, but also like I just felt this like the way it's like divine, like just like bliss. Like I was so overjoyed and just like overwhelmed with joy and like power. Like I was just crying. Like it was like crazy, and now I understood like the crying Mary It's just not crying. She's sad. It's divine ecstasy. It's that connect of being connected to that is it feels. Look, I'm really getting chills. It fills you with so much power. Like it's very, very, very intense. I love Mary. I really do. I love Mary.
I can only compare that experience with Hecate, feeling her in my body.
Yeah. Oh, that's what the drawing.
It's like it's not me. It's something else. But she's brilliant and powerful.
That's when you started laughing, I was like, that's it right there. That's it right there.
Yeah.
It's that, like, I don't know. You know what I'm talking about.
You're overtaken, and it's joyful, right?
It's beautiful. It's joyful. Yeah, exactly. So in that sense, you don't need protection. Protection from what? Like
from a goddess.
From. Bueno.
Right.
No, but yeah.
Well, how can we acknowledge Mary Magdalene?
Yes. Mary Magdalene was never a prostitute. I mean, I think we can all agree on that. To me, and I mean, if you read the Lost Gospels, for example, there's the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, just like there's the Gospel of Judas.
And that was taken out by the Council of Nicaea as well, right?
Yes, the Council of Nicaea was very deliberate about removing any Gnostic writings. Anything that seemed Gnostic,
anything that was figured out for yourself.
I mean, and as hard as they tried, there's still traces of the Gnosticism in, even the Gospels.
Revelations, the Gospels.
Revelation is probably the most Gnostic text there is. And I think that's why it baffles still so many biblical scholars, because they don't fucking get it. It's just like they don't know what it means. It's just like because you're not reading it correctly. You're not getting what it is. But Mary Magdalene, I mean, according to the Gospels, was the wife of Christ. And according to these Lost Gospels, he revealed to her the secrets of the divine feminine. And as his consort, like, you are the other half to this. And as my other half, you will learn these mysteries. So he reveals to her a very specific, role that women play in this spiritual kind of dynamic. So I mean, Mary Magdalene, like, I mean, there's so many traces of her being his wife. Like, it's crazy. For example, like when Jesus is giving, he turns water to wine for the first time, and he's at a wedding, right?
At a wedding with his mom.
Huh?
He's at a wedding with his mom. He's like 13. He's like, woman, my time has not yet come.
No. That's when they call it. That's when they catch him reading in the temple. But when he attends a wedding and he turns water to wine, it never says who's getting married, but it says that Jesus is sitting at the head of the table, by Mary Magdalene. And I mean, who sits at the head of the table at a wedding? The bride and the groom, right? So, and then even when Jesus is dying, Mary, his mother, is not even present. Mary Magdalene was present. And that's because at the time, that was the role of the wife. You had to be there. When they go to clean up his body, Mary Magdalene and Mary, his mother, go to take care of his body. In the Jewish custom at the time, that was the role of the wife and the mother. So it's just like, why is Mary Magdalene doing these wife roles? Because that was his wife. Like, this is like, he was, you know what I mean?
Whoa.
She was with him wherever he went.
She was with him wherever he went.
Did he have a kid?
It could have been.
It's rumored.
That's Da Vinci Code.
Yeah,
but I mean, why not? Jesus was a man. Why wouldn't he have children? Yeah, you know what I mean? But I'm saying that's part of the Gnostic ideas that got removed because they were wanting to remove anything that made Jesus seem too human. Because remember, the story they're trying to sell is Jesus was God. So God cannot have a wife. God cannot have sexual desires. So Mary Magdalene, she's a prostitute.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
Well, humans create this impossible standard of perfection, and it's based on everything we literally can't do. So 100%. We're going to say Jesus is the only one that could do that.
100%.
But we didn't define what perfection actually means, really.
Which is why I love Matthew chapter 10, because he tells his people, like, yo, you can do what I do. And even greater.
Jesus was very relatable, and I love what you're saying about creating this image of perfection, and I think that's part of like the toxic nature of like mainstream religion, Christianity in particular, that it creates a standard that is literally impossible to live up to.
Yeah.
And people are constantly beating themselves up because they can never live up to that. Whereas where you look at more pagan religions, even like in the African religions, all of the Orisha, you can look at them as gods, but they're very human in the sense that they have flaws. You know what I mean? It's just like they can be jealous. They can have human-like qualities, but I feel like that's what makes them relatable. You're not trying to become like that God. Right. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, it's realizing that you are similar to this, and I feel like I love that more than trying to relate to an impossible standard or an imperfect thing.
I also love the part of the scripture. Am I about to cut you off?
No.
Yeah, what were you going to say?
I was going to say just original sin.
What about original sin?
If you're Christian, you're born with original sin.
Yeah.
So you're starting.
You're really starting down. Yeah, exactly.
You're born with original sin that you had nothing to do with.
Yeah, nothing to do with.
And some weird, I don't know where they get. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we were talking about original sin yesterday because she was talking about her dad who is really religious, and one of the things like original sin comes from Adam and Eve, so they say, because of the curse. But if you really look at Genesis, it says the church narrative teaches that Adam and Eve lived forever. Man lived forever. We were immortal. Everything was bliss, heaven on earth in Eden. But if you look at the scriptures, we know that Adam and Eve were not immortal, because right after they ate from the tree of knowledge, God places an angel and it says, stop them before they eat from the tree of life and live forever like us. So that already tells you off the rip, Adam and Eve were not immortal. They never were. They were very human. So if that's the case, then that means either the serpent was telling the truth, that they would know both good and evil, or God is lying because he said you'll die. So God says you'll die, but Christians say, oh, that's natural death. I mean, that's natural sin. That's death entering the world. But if Adam and Eve were not immortal, then you can't argue that. You see what I'm saying? So the argument of natural sin already falls apart at that point.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like...
And it goes back to the us line too, right? So if there's like the one creator, then who was the one watching over the garden when the one creator was gone?
Well, who says there's one creator, though? That's
right,
the thing.
Well, I'm just picking one source.
Like, no. I'm saying, like, even using scriptures.
Yeah.
It says, even God says, come, let us make man in our image, in our likeness.
It's true.
Who's he talking to? You can't say he's talking to the angels, because he's saying to look like us. That means he's speaking to people on equal playing fields. You know what I mean? If I'm sitting together with all of you guys and I'm like, let's make something like us, that means we're all the same. You feel what I'm saying? Like, we're all on equal standing here. If I'm saying, let's make it like us, now let's make it like me. Us. Who's he talking to?
Right.
Stop them before they live forever, like us. Like,
Gods are aliens. I'm telling you.
Listen, I'm with you, bro.
I'm telling you.
Like, I'm 100% on board with that idea.
And this is a simulation. They're designing in front of our eyes.
Listen, I saw the eye. I saw the great architect on that thing. Listen, this is a simulation. For sure.
For sure.
When we got really connected in magic, stuff was happening. Fireworks were going off.
It was crazy.
Out of nowhere.
You totally got to
And
come with us next time.
certain animals would chirp.
Totally got to
and
come
it was
with us
just
next time.
Yeah, he would say Hecate, who's like represented by bats, and all of a sudden a bat would appear.
Yeah, we did like a whole invocation, and every part of the invocation started to happen. Like, we were talking about
as we would say it, and like the toads.
the
It was
toad,
like-
and like everything happened. Like, as we were saying, it was.
and then
so
when we
crazy.
when we got up to leave, all of a sudden a crescendo of fireworks went off.
And the timing of everything. The timing of everything was just like,
it was divinely orchestrated.
It was an orchestra.
There was we were conductors, and God was playing the music.
He's like, they got it. Keep going.
They're like, yes, this right here. Yeah.
Don't be distracted. This. And that's what I mean by following the synchronicities. Is I feel like it's constantly breadcrumbs. Are you going to get distracted, or are you going to follow your path? And as long as you follow your calling, or your vocation, or your whatever, right? You'll find your synchronicities. You keep following those, and they'll lead you down. That'll lead you to your inner knowing, your inner magic. Because everybody has different magic, right? Like you said, like some people can just play the fucking violin. That's magic.
Yeah. Honestly, it is.
Like the way some of these people can do it. Like everybody has their own form of magic that we're supposed to give out, right? Like, and I think the problem is, I don't want to demonize the Industrial Revolution, because again, it's brought us this. Like, this allows us to spread the good word, which is why it's free game, to people throughout the world, right? So it's necessary. But the problem is now, the people that are going to benefit from it obviously want everybody in it. But like, it might not necessarily be for everybody. Like, college is not necessarily for everybody.
I agree with that.
You know what I mean?
I totally agree with that.
Like, cities are awesome, but so is land, and like creating our own crops.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Self-sustaining.
Self-sustaining. If something were ever to wipe out an infrastructure, myself included, I'm fucking useless.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, I got a bunch of like cool city skills, like read 1 million books.
Right.
I don't know how to fucking toil the ground. I'm gonna go learn.
If I can't Google it, I'm screwed.
Right.
I'm going to be eating random plants in the forest, getting poisoned and die.
Poisonous mushrooms kill you.
Yeah.
Wrong mushroom.
Like, I'm so hungry. Oh my god. Yeah.
So like we think we're so much smarter than like previous time frames. Not too long ago in the 1800s, people could live off the land, and they still had like mini cities. that's that's 2 people ago.
Well, that's the thing is I feel like a lot of we think we're so much smarter because of technology.
Because of technology.
You know what I mean?
Somebody else created it. We didn't create it.
Right.
We don't even know how it works.
Right. We didn't
I don't know how
my
my cell phone works.
I don't know how my cell phone
works. I don't know how that shit works.
Oh, it's going to a satellite. Okay.
Yeah, it's like,
that
okay,
means.
sure. Yeah, right. Whatever that means. Yeah, exactly.
Cool. I'm just gonna call you.
Yeah, 5G waves. Yeah. That's you don't know what that means. But I feel like if we're using technology to compare, like you were saying, like, if you were to take us and, if we time traveled right now, we went back to, I don't know, 2000 BC, humans would think we're fucking stupid, considering like we can't do the most. What do you mean you don't know how to navigate using the stars, you moron? Like, what do you mean you don't know how to grow this? How do you not know how to hunt that? How do you not know? You know what I'm saying? It's just like to them, we're dumb. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We'd be very dumb. Or so it's like you can't use technology, I feel like, to measure intelligence. Like they were talking about like understanding, like what was we talking about dogs, and they were saying like, oh, that what breeds of dogs are smart and what breeds are. But the thing is that they were talking about in the article, we're using human measurements to determine the intellect of animals.
Yeah.
So they were saying, like, if you take a seahorse who could literally tell which current they're on just by how it feels, and they know, oh, I'm flowing south or whatever, we can't do that. So it's just like, so to a seahorse, we're stupid. You know what I mean? It's just like, how do you not know how to do that? What do you mean how do you not know the Atlantic current right now?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
That's what Einstein said about the fish. Like, you can't judge... Like how smart someone is, you can't judge it based on the fish's ability to climb a tree.
Right?
You'll live its whole life thinking it's stupid.
It's stupid, and it's not. Yeah. It's not. And I feel like we do that. I feel like that's a human flaw too.
It's going back to not following the calling. Everybody has their own calling.
Right.
And I'm super successful in the Industrial Revolution world. So like I'm fortunate in this, right? But like some people might supposed to be out there making fucking music, or like supposed to be out there because they might be able to do wonders with the earth. Like there's like I want to get back into that, but like, and I'm succeeding here. But I think the problem is people. Again, I'm using the church as the boogeyman. The church isn't the boogeyman. It's we are the. All right, maybe the church. I don't know. But like,
church
so like,
state.
The powers to be, right? This is whatever. But like, we're convincing people to follow a one size fits all that's convenient for the people that are already in top, and good for them, right? Like they're on top, but that doesn't mean the people on the bottom have to listen. And the problem is they are, and then people are ashamed of like what others might think of them.
Yes,
if they follow their own calling.
Yes.
Whereas honestly, what happens is I went through this in 2007. I've been going through it now 14 years, but now others around me find their own calling. But like like Chauncey and those guys, like initially they all thought I was fucking crazy, like absolutely batshit, and now they follow me because I didn't give a fuck. I was like, yo, cool. I know what I'm being called to do. I'm going to do this. I'm going to be a teacher because I just saw a red dot from Synesthetic that told me to be a teacher. What?
Which feels divine. That's enough of a reason.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And then I didn't stick it, but I did it, and then that led me down to like I had a calling to go to Florida. Cool. I'm going to sneak into acting gigs. Met you. All right, cool. I'm going to go here. Met Garrett. Got into USL, and I just follow the signs. It's like each little breadcrumb. So it's like. Initially, you have to. I was kind of telling Danielle the other day. I was like, you have a choice, right? You can be like a beautiful, like dependent, like girl, or you can be like a powerful, like goddess. You know what I mean?
Powerful goddess, please.
Of course, of course. But if you choose your greatness, you have to know people are going to talk shit along the way.
Yes.
And then eventually, when you stop caring what they think and you start succeeding, they won't change their way until you start succeeding.
Yes.
And you're not going to succeed overnight, but you just keep following your breadcrumbs. You just keep putting in the work. All right, cool. Changing course, right? You can't control it. You just steer it. All right, cool. Going this way. And eventually they get super inspired, and then they start doing it. And, like, that's our Matthew chapter 10, right? Like, that's us inspiring the world. Like, yo, we're just going to follow our fucking path and figure it out. And we're going to be completely open about what we're doing while we're doing it.
Yeah. Shed the ego.
Shed the ego.
Yeah.
I struggle with that. I always think of what other people are thinking of me.
That's normal.
Yeah.
That
always.
was my awakening moment yesterday. I was like, that's my cage that I created for myself, was caring what other people think.
Yeah.
They have no power over me. And as a counselor, I'm constantly helping people not care what other people think. Like, your own opinion of yourself is the standard.
Right.
And if you're going to lower your values to meet someone else's, you lost yourself.
You've lost yourself.
And you lost the inner magic.
I mean, you said you grew up like Catholic, right? So, I mean, I'm not just Catholics, but I mean, the church as a whole is obsessed with image.
Yeah.
So it makes sense for really young, you really have to care what people think because, oh my God, what if,
I hated church since I was like 7.
Of course. noise.
My whole life I hated
Terrible.
it.
Yeah, I mean, I was getting kicked out of church for being too heretical, but I
Surprise, surprise.
I was. I used to be a youth group leader when I was like 16, 17, and I lost my group because I was being controversial. but that was one of the things, because eventually it's just kind of like you keep reading the Bible and you're like,
You keep reading, you're like, this is not what we're doing.
This is not what we're doing.
Yeah, it just didn't feel right.
It didn't feel right. It's just like you're saying
These words
this,
are awesome,
right.
and I'm doing something different. Like Jesus keeps saying to like question things and like do this, and you guys get mad when I'm
and I'm calling out.
If you're telling me to follow this guy, I'm going to follow this guy.
I'm following what he's doing.
Yeah, like,
I'm calling out corruption where I see it.
Yeah.
I'm calling out the hypocrisy in the religious leaders, and you guys are not liking it. And I got kicked out. So this whole,
it's going to be awkward if I stay.
Right? I've truly lived the life of Jesus. I think so.
Poor Jesus watching down on us, talking bad about the Pharisees the whole time, and then the Pharisees took actual Jesus, and they're like, "Oh, we can still use this.
We can still use this, because that's literally what happened.
They gave him up to die, and they're like, "Perfect, he's gone. Now we're going to use his story. Everybody loves him. He's mine."
Yeah, he's mine. Actually, this is our story.
Yeah.
But it has to be white Jesus with blue eyes.
to
I never
be
got
so
that
it's
either.
accepted.
Yeah, at church,
Yes.
it was white. I was like, Jesus was not
There's
white.
nothing to get.
Well, Luke
Right,
was,
there's nothing to understand about that. That just didn't make any sense.
Luke was saying yesterday, if Jesus comes back, he's not going to be in the form we're expecting,
At all.
right?
Well, the irony is, if Jesus came back, people like us would vibe with him.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And Christians would say he's not acting like Jesus.
But the traditional Christians would get mad because he'd be hanging out with bad people. He'd come up
Or
from
what they
probably a
perceive
poor
as bad
family,
people. Mhm.
or right. He'd come up kind of out of nowhere.
Jesus would have
And
been
he would
born
talk
to
shit.
immigrant parents
Yeah.
from a low income, hanging out with pretty much everyone we're sitting out
Hanging out with drug dealers and
drug
hookers.
dealers and hookers, and the outcasts of society.
The outcast in society. And one of my favorite lines is, everybody in church seems to fucking forget it. He goes, "You guys," I don't remember exactly how he words it about John the Baptist, but it's like, you guys criticized or didn't accept John the Baptist, who didn't drink, and now you call the Son of Man a drunkard.
A drunkard.
Which means if he's acknowledged, he's not saying he is a drunkard. It's not, anybody's listening. I'm not saying Jesus is an alcoholic, but he's obviously acknowledging the fact that people are spreading rumors or think he's a drunkard, which means he got down. Right? His miracles are like wine and stuff, which is cool. I get down. But
He lived his life.
He lived his life.
He
So
just
like,
lived his
and
life.
he's
Also, water wasn't always clean back then.
yeah,
That's
Let's
true.
not
Also
forget
true.
that. Alcohol was like a big drink because it was
It's
you weren't going to get
like-
sick. Yeah.
That's actually very
Just to throw that out there.
No, it's 100%.
Putting a little
very
cultural
true. Yeah,
relevance.
It's like, well,
It's 100% necessary. 100% necessary.
That's actually very true.
I mean, so he probably wasn't a drunk by choice. It's just by default.
Just
'cause
happened.
the
By
water
default.
was dirty.
I'm just a drunk by
because you were
default.
shitting in the river, and if you drank the water down there, you were fucked.
Yeah.
Right.
Very true,
It's very
actually.
true.
Yeah, I
Very
didn't even
true.
consider that, actually.
And yeah, I don't again, I don't consider me drunk, but it's funny that he, has to acknowledge that. Like, yo, you guys call me a fucking drunkard, and you were mad at John the Baptist who didn't drink. Like,
Yeah.
what do you want, people?
Well, I imagine people just always exaggerate everything.
They do.
Yeah.
So he's hanging out with women, they're prostitutes.
Right.
He drank wine, drunkard. That's what people do to each other anyway.
Especially from religious people who would have been saying that.
Right.
So it's just like, oh, I saw him drinking wine. Oh, he's a drunk, un borracho. Like, he's like, I saw him just going off. Like, it's just like the.
So if Jesus came back, though, like, think of that, like, he would be criticizing the powers to be. He'd be telling everybody to give their possessions to others. He'd be doing all these things that a lot of these people that claim to love Jesus would honestly be like, fuck that guy.
Yeah, it's because they love Republican Jesus.
Is he supposed to come back?
That's the point of the story.
Well, that's the thing. I mean,
I don't. In the story,
in the literal, if you're looking at biblical literalism, yes, he's going to come back on, in this whole kind of thing. But if you really think about it, the second coming of Christ had already happened, right? So Jesus refers to, I believe, Isaiah, and he says, "And you shall see the Son of Man coming on the clouds and bringing judgment." And he says that again, and it's brought up again in Revelation. Coming on the clouds and bringing judgment was a reference to God, right? But coming on the clouds is also coming in messages or through people. So the second coming of Christ was more metaphorical, because if you think about it, after his death, Christianity exploded. And he says that the kingdom would reach over around the world. So, I mean, really, the second coming Christ already happened. It just happened in the metaphorical sense that it's his message he spread and returned, in this new as King of Kings and Lord of Lords, because Christianity absolutely became the dominating
100%.
religion of the world. Still is to this day.
Still is, yeah.
You know what I mean? So, in a way, if you look at, yes, he did come back already. So, I feel like, that's why.
that's very interesting.
Yeah, there's something called, I think it's Preterism. And it's the belief that all apocalyptic prophecy has already been fulfilled at the time. Like where Jesus talks about the signs, he talks about the destruction of the Jewish temple. which happened, if I'm not mistaken, in 40 AD, exactly as he said it would. Not one stone left on top of another. The Jews would be scattered everywhere after they just like he talked about. So everything really happened at the time. You know, the Antichrist. We know that it was Nero's. You know, or Caesar, if I'm not mistaken, the 666.
Yeah.
I think it was Nero. Because Nero was the one killing Christians. You know what I mean? So it's just like, so all of Revelation, all of that was written, coded, so that the Romans didn't understand, you know, the messages that they were talking about. They were talking about Rome. Everything refers to, everything that Christians now is apocalyptic already happened.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're just waiting for this fiery judgment to happen. But that's a distraction to me, because the truth is, you can make heaven on earth.
Right.
You're supposed to bring it here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was Jesus' teachings. Like,
Right.
we can make heaven on earth.
Right.
And my whole thing is like the Bible, I presume, is cyclical, the same way the universe is.
Yes.
So I think you start off, you know, God's our Father, kicks us out of the house, like, go get a fucking job, right? Like, toil the earth.
Yeah.
Literally, in a sense, toil the earth, metaphorically, work. All this goes down, his son comes, teaches us the way to do it, and now we have to go back and recreate it back in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Like, toil the earth, like, recreate it. All right, cool, we went through the bad part on the way back. And that's where, that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. But even going deeper into that, looking at the Gospel of Thomas, he said the kingdom of heaven is within, right?
Within,
Yeah.
So we have to
yes.
find peace within ourselves,
Right.
acknowledging there is a devil in us, there is a shadow side, but it's the
100%.
integration of those that creates that balance in the world. There
Right.
is inherent evil, but there's also the opposite, the light.
Where does the
That
evil
become-
come from? Because you were saying you don't subscribe to the devil
I don't
ideology.
believe. I mean, humans have been doing evil things.
Is it just
since
almost
forever.
necessary because you have like light
Yeah.
and darkness,
Yeah.
life and death?
I
The
mean, if you-
Hermetic principles talk about the ebb and flow.
The balance.
So you have to have the good to balance the evil, or else good wouldn't exist.
Like I was
Right.
telling Danielle yesterday, like in the African traditional religions, like in Santeria and, you know, those kinds of things, evil is the absence of what is good, but they're both two parts of a whole. Like there's
Yeah.
not one that can be without the other.
Right.
So it's like
It's
even
for reference.
Right, exactly. So like even the spirits and things like that, they're not good or evil. You know what I mean? It depends on what you're asking them to do. They're not. We conceive what is good and what's evil. You know what I mean? Like the angel in one story could be a demon to somebody else.
Right.
It's really about your perspective and like what's happening. You know what I mean? It's just like if someone wrongs me, for example, and let's say I go and I send spirits their way, people are gonna be like, these are evil spirits coming after me. They're not. They're evil to you because they're bringing harm to you, but they're serving me and my purpose, so they're A-okay in my book. You see what I'm saying?
I
So
do.
it's just like everything is really
It's
like
perspective.
is perspective and how you're looking at it. Everything is neutral. It's you as a person ultimately determines how you're going to use something, how you're going to do something.
That kind of be like the Buddhist view.
Yeah, that's where it puts the responsibility in your hands. And I love that you talked about how the devil is within you. Because if you think about it, look at
But if God's
how-
within, the devil has to be too.
Yes, but also look at how every time the devil has been referenced when something happens. Oh, the devil is making me. Really, the devil is your own desires that you refuse to act on. So because you cannot act on these desires, they consume you, they torment you, and it feels oppressive. And Christians, religious people say this is the devil. It's not. It's just this is your own repressed desire. And you're calling it the devil. You know, that's why like back then, like if a woman let her hair down, like that was the devil tempting people. It's just like, no, the devil there is your own lust.
Yeah.
And your desire.
It's not the girl.
It's not the
It's
girl.
the guy who's
It's-
like, ooh,
right.
really? And it's like,
And he knows that for whatever reason that he can't get her or whatever,
Yeah.
and oh, that's the devil. She's the devil. No,
She's
not.
tempting me, yeah.
She's tempting me. No,
like you're tempting yourself.
You're tempting yourself. Exactly, and you don't want to act on it, so it's a conflict for you.
oh, that's interesting.
And there's the devil. You know what I'm
You
saying?
don't have to act on it. It's just the acknowledgement that it exists,
That it
and then
exists.
your responsibility to
And you're-
choose
right.
the greater path for you, right?
Exactly. 1,000% there. So yeah, I mean, the devil has always been the carnal or the, how would you even put that? I guess the shadow that we don't want to acknowledge. You know what I mean? Some people have evil intentions and
Yeah.
they'll say that's the devil. No, you're just a fucked up person. You know, like that. That's just, and until you acknowledge that, you're going to keep scapegoating. The devil's a goat, right? You're going to keep scapegoating and blaming the devil.
Right.
When really it's you the whole time. It's always been you. That's
Scapegoating. We were talking about it last night.
Mm-hmm.
They just put the blame on somebody and call him the devil.
Right.
Scapegoating makes perfect sense.
Yeah, they blame everything on the devil instead of taking responsibility for yourself.
And that's the reason why the world hasn't healed itself.
Exactly.
It
And that's what makes spiritualists different.
Until people look in the mirror.
Yeah.
What Dustin Poirier said, karma's not a bitch, it's a mirror.
It's a mirror. Exactly. Everything is a mirror.
That was powerful.
That was so powerful.
And that's actually, I'm going to tattoo that.
Yeah.
Dude, that's a powerful statement.
That's a very powerful statement.
Because that's so true.
It is.
Conor McGregor was like, he's going to leave on a stretcher. Conor McGregor left on a fucking stretcher. Sitting down, trying to throw bullshit lines out and why he lost. Dude lost. Got his kick checked.
Yeah.
Planted his foot later and it broke.
Yeah.
He hadn't been putting the work in for the last 5 years. Tried to put it in 6 months. Overdid it. Probably weakened his shins in the training, trying to get his legs ready for kicks. Because he had to overdo it because he took 5 years off.
Yeah, well, he connected on 2, and on the third one, Poirier checked it.
And then he pointed. He did. He was like, he's like, got you, bitch.
Yeah, he's like, I know that hurt.
Yeah.
He felt it, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I feel like life, the gods, whatever you want to call it, will always humble you. And I feel like that's one thing that's consistent. Like, no matter what, the gods hate arrogance. The spirits hate arrogant people. And they will make sure you get checked every time you get a little bit too big-headed. Right. And so that humility factor, but I feel like humility comes in, again, being okay with yourself. You know, it's hard to hate something when you understand it. And I feel like a lot of people hate so many parts of themselves because they don't want to understand that part of themselves. They repress it. This is bad. I shouldn't. It's just like, no, like that's just part of who you are.
Yeah.
Think of any animal or person that's repressed. They hate the person repressing them.
Yes.
So their inner part hates themselves, and then they call it that.
Yes.
You're in a mental, tug of war.
In counseling, I do something called parts work. So it makes a figure to the part people hate of themselves, but we're owning it and we're giving it a name. Like, that's my angry part. And that was developed in my childhood because my mother talked to me this way. So it normalizes this angry part that they hate, and we can integrate it with the part that they love or the part they're trying to become, and they find wholeness inside.
Because it's a part of you. That's why, and I've said it a million times. It's the Western idea creates this narrative of good versus evil, which is super toxic when you're trying to think spiritually. Because then it creates this: I hate half of myself because half of myself is bad.
You know what I mean? Way to put it: accepted versus hid.
Accepted versus what?
Like an accepted part of yourself versus a hid part of yourself.
Yeah.
Instead of good versus evil.
Yeah.
The wording is important, right?
The wording is important.
Because when it's evil, it's the enemy.
Right.
When it's hid, it's like, cool, why?
Right.
We're Masons. People think it's... ironically, he does do magic.
Well, you're not the 33rd degree yet. You don't know.
Right, we don't know yet. Like I said, we haven't gotten to the sacrifice.
And Antonio's a rarity. To be clear, like anybody listening, Antonio's a rarity. The Masons aren't that, but because...
I was just joking.
But because, actually, the Masons, you have to believe in God even to get in.
Yeah, that's very true.
And it's super, like, almost like...
kind of Christian-y.
Yeah, very, very Christian-y, right? The irony is because they don't openly tell every single person what they're doing, now they're bad people. When really they're like the good guys behind the scenes trying to help everybody.
Yeah.
Like, that would be the easiest way I describe the Masons, the good guys behind the scenes protecting you from yourself.
Mm-hmm. And going back to the shadow thing, I mean, people have this idea like you have to beat your shadow and overcome your shadow and become better than it. It's just like, that's not the fucking point.
Right.
You're going to be forever at war and at odds with yourself if that's what you think you have to do. It's like you said, it's about integration of the shadow.
I keep thinking about Harry Potter when him and Voldemort merge.
When they merge, yeah,
that
exactly.
was the only way out, basically.
Yeah, the only way out is to merge with it, is to flow into it, you know, and he wanted more powerful that way, you know what I mean? And you know, after he lost his powers after destroying it, but he did. He wound up more powerful, and I think that's kind of like the point, you know?
Yeah.
It's integration of the shadow creates wholeness, you know, and accepting that. I think you can't, it's like, I think key to magic, you asked me earlier too, if you cannot change your inner world, you have no power to change your outer world. So
the mustard seed, the God is within you.
That's the mustard seed. If you can't change in here, you will have no power to affect the outside. Right, exactly.
If you can change that in there, you can change the outer world.
Yes.
Because this is a hologram.
It is.
Scientifically, mathematically, we don't know what the fuck it means. Like, if you guys don't believe me, you can look up hologram principle, go to scholarly journals. Neil deGrasse Tyson even talks about it.
Elon Musk.
Elon Musk. Although he's not technically truly a physicist, although he's brilliant and engineer. But when Scott and I first became friends, Jeff Bezos looks like Lex Luthor. Bezos, if you're listening, dude, you could be a cool guy. I'm not saying that. Like,
if you're listening, that's Jeff Bezos.
But like, I'm sorry, the Bezos thing just got distracted. I don't even remember what I was saying.
Lex Luthor.
No. More Lex Luthor. So integration. Fast forward.
I don't know. Moving forward.
Deluxe took us away.
On Amazon, I got a couple packages showing up this week.
I think he glitched us from talking. We're like,
It's like erase. They're getting too close to source.
The mustard seed. And it's just kind of, again, the mustard seed, Jesus always references faith in heaven as like the mustard seed. And it's when you learn how to truly change your inner world, you can change the outer world. And if the outer world is what mathematics shows and quantum physics is real, like this is Schrodinger's principle, right? It's like the observer creates the reality. It would make sense that we can alter this paradigm, this matrix, or this hologram.
Yeah, 100%. That's why I told you in the guest. It's like, I don't know how it works. I don't know why.
That's why I liked the answer. When I asked you and you said that, I was like, cool.
Yeah.
I believe you.
Yeah, because
because no one does know.
No one knows. I'd be bullshitting if I was like, yes, it's I don't know. And
because you could have the omens and ignore them and just be like, I'm a rationalist and things just happen. And it just so happened that I was talking about this and this happened. And I guess mathematically the probability just lined up and you chose to pick that out. But the point is the reality comes from you picking it out.
Right.
Because that's your experience.
That's your experience.
So regardless of, you could even go mathematically and say, yeah, that was the one in whatever chance and it happened and I paid attention and I hold that on. But it changes my actual my interaction with the world. Which makes it real. Right? That actually makes it real.
Absolutely.
Because you could have like a scientist say, it's all bullshit. Right. You're just doing a chant and and it's like, yeah, but if I'm actually changing the energy and the electromagnetism, it's real.
It's real
because I'm affecting it.
Right, it's real. If it's happening it is real.
Because I'm more like a realist. Like when you say God's in everybody, I just think quantum physics, particle physics. The more we learn about science, the more you prove that everything is connected. On a biological and electromagnetic level. If you just looked at it from electrons, protons, neutrons, everything would look the same.
So
and then we see everything differently, but everything's made up of the same material.
And there's no part of, I was saying amongst us that there is no part of us that is not of the gods. And it's true. I mean, even on the line of what you're saying, our bodies is a makeup of everything.
That's what I'm saying. It's
so
science proves that.
So it makes sense that we are connected to all of this. When we were I had the mission of yesterday of connecting with the ancestors. Remember, I told you I was like, I started going back, and then it clicked on me. Spirits were saying, the rocks, the trees, these were the first ancestors because we come from the ground. Our minerals are bones. You know what I'm saying? It's just so it makes sense that we have this connection to our environment because we come from the environment.
Yes,
you know what I'm saying?
Which is why mushrooms are awesome.
Yeah.
Luke slowly converted. I mean, I'm
converted.
I had done them like probably 5 or 6 times on my own.
Most people do them for fun, which is cool as shit. Anybody that does them for fun, not knocking. I just do them to connect.
I think that's going up to that mountain and just do it with the purpose of connecting. I feel like you really get the point.
I've never tripped with a purpose.
Tripping with a purpose.
Although last time we kind of
did,
and that helped me a lot.
Yeah, exactly. And you figured life out. Watching him figure out life while on mushrooms. Bro, I feel like I was watching Tommy Boy in real life.
Yeah.
I was like crying, laughing.
Yeah.
Jeremy just being like,
I just felt it all happening. I was like, oh my God, what the fuck?
Make it make sense. Like, hitting it, like, make it make sense.
There's a, what do you call it?
The
reset button. There's a 14th century, there's a 14th century fresco painting of Adam and Eve at the Tree of Knowledge. And the Tree of Knowledge in that painting is a mushroom.
Oh, no.
Of course.
Yeah.
The word mushroom is interchangeable in Hebrew.
What does that tell you, though? What does that tell you?
The word mushroom is interchangeable in Hebrew with fruit.
So the fruit of the tree, again.
And again, like, let's look at nature, right? So trees communicate with themselves, right? Most people know that. If you don't, trees communicate with themselves with their roots. We say they communicate with themselves. What they do is they send in their roots in the ground to the mycelium, which is mushroom roots in the ground. They send the information that's needed, and the mushrooms send that to the other trees. It's actually the mushrooms connecting everything. And when you eat the mushroom, I mean, again, I think everything is symbolic, right? I don't know if anybody's never done it. If you haven't, Google trees and lungs, and look at that and look at the images. It's the same fucking thing. Or like
even our neurons. Look like that
neurons
structure.
and like galaxies, right? Like everything. Mushrooms look like dicks, right? Spores with the it's the Earth's dick, right? So like. Whatever. It's funny. It is funny. But like,
Are
at
you
the
saying
same.
you got dicked down by the earth, bro?
Yeah.
I did. He's like, I did. I did.
Mother Earth is fucking me for the first time.
I just got fucked by Mother Earth.
Right. So like, but like, think about it, right? So like, the spores actually go to your brain, and they actually reconnect you to nature. And everybody thinks like your brain's going crazy. And now all these studies are showing they're starting to decriminalize them, and they're good with. Actually, they're huge with business and depression.
PTSD.
But
PTSD.
people that are dying for cancer are no longer afraid. They still know they're going to die. It's not changing that, but they have a new appreciation. But from just like a personal like own beneficial standpoint, it increases brain connectivity and speed, decreases dead matter. They think it actually might be the cure to Alzheimer's, and increases gray matter and brain density. Right? And think of what mushrooms also do for the earth. They kill the dead. They eat the dead material. There's new mushrooms that are now eating plastic, and saving the landfills.
Oh shit!
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah. These new mushrooms just fucking appeared. They also psilocybin they can live on asteroids. So like,
Because survive in a vacuum?
so I don't. Yeah, apparently, because the spores just hold on and wait till they get into like a collision.
Oh. Or are they like
So
frozen or
who
something?
who knows what spurred life? But if God's dick, right? The asteroid hits the Earth and the spores. I mean, mushrooms like cause changes, right? That could be what starts causing life within the atmosphere because it was already ready for it, and then it causes a connection, and you kind of like see things and like understand things. And it also in psychology, there's a term called it's just a corny name, but it's called the default setting. So when I'm looking at the wall, right, and I'm hearing everything and I'm talking, as my brain processes it, it goes to, I forget the part of the brain, but it puts it in like this regulator, and it's called the default setting. So if you do mushrooms, what people think is like your brain's at a higher speed. Your connectivities are faster, but there's actually less happening. It gets rid of the default setting, and you just sense things as they are. That's why you see. That's why like things taste better, and you see clearer. It actually improves your eyesight. You actually
all my senses.
Yeah, the senses, especially the eye, like the sharpness of things.
The sharpness. The sharpness.
And the sense of touch.
Sense of touch.
Like everything, you just
Or
feel
if you
feel it. Yeah, like the vibration almost. Like you can feel it.
Because it doesn't have to go through that regulator. There's no third party being like, all right, this is
filter,
cool.
like we talked
There's
about.
no filter.
There's no filter.
It just comes in and whatever. That's why I love. Anybody has no mushrooms. It's almost like being high, but you're more coherent almost.
Yeah, I don't feel. I mean, I haven't done a crazy. I do regular dose, but I don't feel like out of my mind.
No. You feel
like,
way more coherent.
I feel more like focused and like connected to everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't feel like.
It's not what people think.
Yeah, it's really not. It's really
not what people think
at all.
That's why in Silicon Valley, instead of Adderall, what the top like level like business owners do is they microdose
shrooms.
So like instead of getting what I love, like the more hallucinatory or whatever effects,
They get the giddy.
They just get the brain speed and the functioning, which is like a huge business thing right now. Is like microdosing, which will be what actually gets it legalized.
And the creativity.
Yeah, like artists. I think artists should do like heavy amounts for the creativity.
Listen, this noggin here, I'm gonna hit that second book like after all these
we
experiences.
barely even talked about Tony's book.
Yeah.
But man, if you guys are looking for an awesome book to read, magic, and just it's so cool. It's called The Gospel of Noah. Obviously, he's got a super church background, so like there's all these different references and stuff like that. But it's called The Gospel of Noah. It's going to be a 3-part series. It's one of the best books I've ever read in my life.
Thank you, bro. It's more than 3 books. I'm playing off of so there's going to be 4 initially, which are going to be the 4 Gospels, and then the 5th one after that. Instead of because after in the Gospels comes the Acts of the Apostles, but this one's going to be the Acts of the Apostates, and then afterwards it'll tie it up with the revelation of the final character. So then everything will tie up from there.
Obviously, biblically.
Yeah, no,
that's cool.
that's how I laid them out. So all the Gospels will change. So the first one's Noah, the next one is the Gospel of Levi, and then the Gospel of Abel, and then the Gospel of Eli, and then
the Gospel of Abel is the first one you wrote.
No, the first one I wrote. Yes, the Gospel of Abel was the first one I wrote, and then that's when I realized that that's actually the third one. So then I had to write backwards, and I wrote the Gospel of Noah.
Wow.
So yeah, it's weird how that happened. Because I was writing, I was telling you the other day, I finished it, and I was like, oh my god, this is totally the third one. This is not even the first one.
Because I don't want to spoil it and give it away too much. How would you describe your book to Jeremy or the listeners? Or what do you hope they get out of it? Maybe not even describe it.
Mm-hmm.
To me, man, honestly, so I don't know. Gerald Gardner wrote, like, the founder of My Tradition. He wrote this book a long time ago in like the 40s.
And for those that are listening, what's your tradition?
Gardnerian.
Gardnerian.
That's a tradition within witchcraft. Yeah. So Gardner wrote a book called High Magic's Aid, and what he did was he wrote about actual witchcraft presented through the lens of fiction. So that's pretty much what I was doing with that book. So it's just like I wanted to write a book, one, that if you practice, you're going to be able to pick up on a lot of things and be like, oh shit, oh, I see what he did there. But also something that, anyone else could read as well. But the point of it is I wrote it in a way that is to make you kind of wonder, like, if this is sounding, this is a little too real sounding, like what's up with this?
Yeah.
So, I mean, if there was any takeaway from reading it, is to look further, dig deeper. My stories are not just stories. I write very deliberately, very intentionally, and I'm saying things.
Of course.
So, I mean, Noah was very much a story about, it was very cathartic for me because I feel like I was just writing a lot about myself because I see a lot of myself in Noah. But for me, Noah was all of my weaknesses are, where I questioned myself, and he essentially
a lot of self-questioning.
A lot of self-questioning and self-worth questioning until he finds his own power.
Is the mom like your mom?
Oh, yeah. Mama's mom.
That's what I figured.
Mama's very much like my own mother. But yeah, he finds his own power and his own standing, and he becomes king of the witches by the end.
Which Antonio is the priest of his coven.
I am a high priest. I run a coven back home in Miami with my high priestess.
And so again, kind of like the magic, it's called the Gardnerians. It's earth. Yeah. It's just natural laws in earth.
I need to come down there and figure some shit out.
Get your mind blown.
You let me know, or I'll come back up here and we'll do some. I mean, as much as I can do with you, because there are things I can't do with you. But
right. I know, Amanda. We got another show coming into the studio. So, guys, I just want to thank Danielle, Tony for being on the show. It was absolutely awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. This was awesome.
Yeah, this was
for this platform.
Yeah, this is very cool. I love it.
I told Jeremy on the way here, I was like, just get ready to get your fucking mind blown.
It's gonna go off air for everyone. Our conversation is gonna continue.
Yeah. No, as soon as the headsets come off.
I was like, I want to go get a chocolate and go freaking walk in the woods right now.
Yeah. I mean, I'm here for it.
So, guys, I want to thank everybody for listening. We call it free game. This came to me through a vision in 2019, or a feeling, I guess you could call it, mushrooms. Anyways, and it was free because it was going to be unrestricted in game life, right? I wanted to spread the good word, and the best way I knew how to do it was kind of, I just somehow thought that this was going to end up happening. Our good friends at Business Radio X. Sorry, Amanda. And I want to wish Mike, man, the best of luck. He's out in Tokyo.
Wow.
So the owner of the studio is actually in Tokyo for the Olympics.
Oh, that's amazing.
Super
so
cool
cool.
dude,
Yeah.
super professional. Honestly, anybody's in the Atlanta area looking to have a podcast, I strongly suggest you connect with them. Try to work out some kind of business deal with them. They're awesome, man. The studio is top notch. We're in Sinesta Radio. And then I also want to just thank all of our previous guests, man, from Rock all the way to Mike. From number 1 to, what episode is this?
5?
6?
I think it's 5.
I think it's 5.
No, I think 6, right? Because we had Rock, Kevin, Joe, Mike,
and then Mike,
and Ali. So this is 6. Yeah, yeah. So we're at number 6. Dang, yeah.
Satan's number.
Oh, yeah, you're number 6, dude.
This is not Satan.
I know.
It's God. It's God. We love God. That's one we think.
Ooh, Satan.
We love God. No, because before the shit gets cut up, like just somebody's gonna see this shit and clip it,
the devil.
and they're gonna be like, "See, I told you all Masons were devil worshippers."
I told you.
So I just want to thank everybody again, guys, and thank you very much, Amanda. But guys, that's free game, episode 6. Very, very synchronistically for whatever you guys want to read into it. But it is episode 6, and things happen the way they're supposed to when you let them.
Truly.
And I hope everybody listening, you guys find your own magic and follow the synchronicities. Follow the connections.